Hello.
Hi there. Sass.
Welcome to Liminal Writing, where Lee and I write for 10 minutes, free flow timed writing based on a trigger line.
Mhm. Yeah.
And today we chose old work
Mhm.
that we haven't gone back to since, but
Yeah.
this was when we started our sessions in liminal writing back in
Yeah.
2021.
21.
It's now been
3 years.
3 years and a
Yeah.
half of this weekly writing session. And then earlier in this, we decided to record some of our sessions and thought we would look back at some of the writing we did in the previous years and read it to each other
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
without having seen it since. Let's see
Yeah.
where it takes us. Here we are.
Let's see where our minds were with the trigger line that says discovering faith.
Okay.
You want to go ahead, Sass?
Okay. Covering faith. Faith is something that I had associated with religion. Being raised a Catholic, faith was all encompassing. It was a noun, a verb, an adjective. It was a blessing, an obligation, a punishment, a warning, a comfort blanket.
Mm.
But as all things malleable, faith reconfigured itself into different things. Sometimes it was a salad, a chicken Caesar salad. It was a prayer. It was a prayer that made me feel like I was nurturing my spirit and made me chew on my thoughts, both
Ah,
sour and sweet, bitter and smooth.
mm.
Sometimes faith is a sweet pint of peanut butter cup ice cream. It brings instant comfort and escape, a quick jump into a cotton cloud, a quick dive into a 16 tog duvet, far from the ground, floating and safe. Sometimes faith is a bite of half-ripened santal fruit. It is jaw-clenching, but you dig in your teeth and with your teeth anyway. It jars your senses, but you ask for it. You question and even swallow the seed just for the heck of it. I have discovered faith in many ways, in its many forms. Faith is a dish you cook for yourself.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Santol, by the way,
Oh.
is a fruit in Asia. I
Mm.
don't know how to describe it. It's a yellow fruit with lots of big seeds inside that are fuzzy, and that's where the flavor is
And it's a meaty,
flesh,
you could
meaty.
describe
Yeah,
it a
the meat.
meaty one
Yeah,
because
but with
there's
the
some,
seed in the middle, lots of seeds.
it's a fruit, but in some provinces in the Philippines, they also make into an actual like dish.
Vegetable. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
The core, the what do you call
The
it?
rind, the
Right.
rind. Yeah. Ooh, that makes me salivate.
Okay, your turn.
All right. Discovering faith. I lost my faith when I heard words from the pulpit denying who I was. I cannot remember the exact words or scripture, but the feeling of exclusion and repulsion slid underneath my skin and networked itself into other parts of me. The entirety of my university years were spent in learning to have faith in something other than the church I was born into. It was learning to have faith in my own capability, to think, to sense, to fine tune what was intrinsically there. It was a belief that there were others like me who believed that no matter the color of your skin, who you loved, you mattered. You, a treasure. I now know that God is real. They are in my everyday breath. They are in my capacity to do good every day, in my ability to choose to stand in the light. That's
Wow.
it.
No, I was listening to that, knowing a little bit of your journey. So you mentioned about how hearing it from what it was said from a pulpit, kind
Mm.
of you lost. faith that way, but
Yeah.
also, I get it. And we were together in parts of that journey around finding things to believe in,
Believe in.
and
Yes. Yeah.
especially in our days as activists. I also know that now you're very much involved in the work of the church,
Uh,
where you are. How did that come full circle? How did that happen?
So that happened when I moved here to
Mm,
Canada, and it was
Canada.
in, I think, in my first or second year here.
Mm,
Uh, we had friends Nora, Angeles, and Ning who introduced me and my partner then to the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto.
mm-hmm,
And the MCCT Toronto is a church that is welcoming for people of all faiths. When the church says, we welcome everybody, this is your home, there are times that even the pastor says that even if you don't believe in God, but you come here and sit and believe in the goodness of somebody
wow.
sitting beside you,
Yeah,
then this is
you're
your
welcome
there.
in the
Yeah,
space.
you are welcome here. That
Wow.
this is God's table, and God does not turn away anybody. So come
Wow.
and receive the blessings of God. The Metropolitan Community Church was started by the Reverend Troy Perry. And so he
Mm,
said, if gays and lesbians are persecuted for who we are, for who we love, I know that God has a place for us. I found a church that says, come in your fullness, come with all your gifts, and participate in what it means to have a life that includes God. Yeah.
wow.
When you talked about, you know, especially on university studies, in believing so much in the power of a people's democratic movement, in
Mm,
the way that it provided purpose for me. It gave purpose to the energy and to the unified feeling of we are all here together
mm-hmm,
working for
mm-hmm.
something that we all believe in: equality, it's justice, it's human rights for everybody, and to dismantle a dictatorship, the
Yeah.
Marcos dictatorship then.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
that was a very powerful call for me. And I also trace that back, that ability to be open to social justice issues. So I went to school that
Mm-hmm.
was run by Good Shepherd nuns, a
Quite
social.
progressive. Yeah.
They always had programs for the underserved communities, marginalized communities in the Philippines. So we were exposed to that.
But what was it that kind of turned you off in the early years? And was that
Oh,
mm, at a young
so like you, I was born and raised in the Catholic
yes.
Church. There was one sermon that was disparaging people who were gay. I can't remember exactly where the church was, but it stuck to me that there was somebody of authority,
Wow.
and I haven't even come out as a
Yeah, yeah.
trans man, but I knew that I was queer even as a kid,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I knew that he was talking about some people that I felt kin to,
Mm,
and I couldn't figure it out. I guess the question for me then as a kid was, how can a God that people say is very loving, forgiving,
mm-hmm.
can also seemingly have the same breath of saying, but there are those of you who are not welcome here. And as one reads and
Yeah.
understands, more of the ways of the world, and then finding the delineation that, oh, okay, that's actually something that was made up by man
Mm-hmm.
because it's a prejudice that authorities in the church have
Mm-hmm.
against people. It's not, I think, the message that God has for all
Yeah.
of us.
So I'm so curious about this. We were both, as you said, born and baptized and raised as Catholics. You especially had most of your schooling in an exclusive girls' school until university, isn't it?
Correct.
In a
From grade
Catholic,
school
in a,
all the way to the,
yeah.
yeah, high school. The sisters were always very, open to conversations. They were loving, they were kind.
Mhm.
And the classes that I remember the most actually were the biology classes because they were about curiosity, about
Mhm.
experimenting, about, dissecting frogs and having equipment of looking through magnifying glass. It was the history classes, it was the civilization classes that stuck
Mhm.
most to me because it
Yeah.
allowed me to understand more about the world and others that live in the world. For me, it was one of the most I consider like a key block in the formation of
Mhm.
my thinking as a person. Because of the kind of curriculum and the kind of mindset that the Good Shepherd nuns had.
Yeah. But even as your the school environment really doesn't hold back or pass critical judgment or even prohibit your
Mm,
expression
mm.
of gender identity or gender expression, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first Filipino that I knew of that came out as a trans woman was the sibling of one of our friends from theater, Audrey Juliano,
Oh, yeah.
has a sibling.
Mm.
Uh,
Trans
and
woman.
I Jennifer, her name is
Oh,
Jennifer, but I met them before they transitioned. But I never got to meet Jennifer physically
right.
then. But that
You
was
only
like,
learned about it
yes,
after.
I only learned about it. And then afterwards, then you begin to hear other stories.
Mm.
Uh that was the closest experience that I had to
Mm.
knowing somebody then in the
A
Philippines.
trans
Right.
person, someone
Yeah,
who
trans
transitioned.
one. So
Wow.
um uh somehow we know inside that there's a part of us that needs to be protected to survive.
Mhm, mhm.
And also,
So
I
you
think when
protected that part of you.
I think so, looking
Mm.
back now,
It didn't feel
yeah,
safe to come out somehow, I guess.
maybe in the way that we do now as an adults,
Yeah,
like in the fullness of it.
yeah.
Then I thought, I was just being me. Though, sometimes my mom would say, "Why did you wear more dresses?" But
Mm.
it wasn't a
Push.
fight that she would
Yeah,
want. They knew who I was,
yeah,
they knew how I was energetically in
yeah.
the world.
You
But there's
became
also
more,
that,
yeah,
exploration of how do you really present and what are you most,
yeah,
who are you most
yeah.
authentic at,
Well, that
right?
got
So,
us somewhere else, but yeah, we were,
but
uh,
I know, but we got to wrap up. But I have a question
uh,
about your work.
oh,
I
yes.
loved how you ended it with like faith is just like something that you chew on.
Yeah. It's
Eh,
a dish you cook for yourself.
Is
Well,
a
it's
sorry,
the end.
is a
It's faith is a dish you cook for
cook for
yourself.
yourself. Because
Right?
I know that you also there was a word that you used. You used chew, and I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the
Faith,
parallels
yeah.
of it being an
Nurturing
act,
my
faith,
spirit and making me
yeah, an
chew on my
act of
body.
taking in
Yes,
something
yes.
and ingesting it
Yeah,
and understanding what are the parts that are good for me in
yeah.
this and what are the parts that I will not take in.
And I
So
think each person's journey in faith is kind of like that, right? If you think of it in terms of flavors, it's been bitter and sour and sweet and comforting and just all of those things. And
yeah, yeah,
so I think as you grow older, as you evolve,
yeah.
spiritually, personally,
Mm,
um, it's really up to you how you hold meaning and how you keep the faith and what faith means for you. Know it can be a whole range of things.
yeah, yeah. Agree.
Sometimes with liminal writing, Lee and I just kind of let it all just flow for 10 minutes. And
Mm,
then we read what we wrote to each other.
each other.
And
Yeah.
then we just talk about. Then sometimes it brings us to the lines we wrote. Sometimes it brings us to another space altogether. Yeah. So if you want to try out some of your own liminal writing, and it's usually really better, I think, as an experience to do it with someone else or even with other friends. So
Mm,
see where it brings you. But
yeah.
otherwise, you have me and Lee to
Yeah.
write with. So what we wrote for this particular exercise was discovering
Covering
faith.
faith.
On that note, thank you for joining us.
See you next time. Bye now. Discover your faith, and you get to discover your friends now when you talk about it.